Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Well, we're back, Peter Kambitzis. Peter Kambitzis.
Kambits. You got it right, man. It took me to the 5th grade to get it right, but you got it right the first time.
And by the way, Peter is not only an entrepreneur, he owns 18 restaurants, for those of you that are joining us now. And we're speaking about the tax breaks that the president introduced on tips. There will be no more taxes on tips, thanks to President Trump. I'm sure that all the servers in the country, not just in New York, in the country, are very grateful for that. And I hope that people appreciate that these changes could only happen at a certain level, okay? And it happened at the highest level. So we want to thank President Trump for all that he is doing for the restaurant and hospitality industry, where there's a lot of turnover. You know, and by the way, there's a lot of restaurants that have gone out of business. Right. You know, it's not an easy business. It's a business that's extremely tough. You seem to be very fortunate because the two young ladies that are here have been working with you for 5 years at your restaurants, which means that you treat them well, you make sure that they're good, and at the same time, you appreciate the hard work that they do, and that's important in order to retain employees. Now, listen, we know that there are no taxes on tips, but I'm sure that it's not an open book.
Correct.
You know, every server needs to know that there's only a limit to how much taxes you're going to get free on your tips, right? You're going to have to pay after a certain amount. And with us, you know, we have Eddie Estrella, who is an accountant, a tax expert, and the guy that we brought in today so that he can give us the bad news, right?
Correct.
Because whenever good news comes, there's always bad news that follows somehow, right? Eddie, come on. Let's go. Let's go.
Well, thank you. Well, there's actually no bad news with this because people are getting money. Like I saw difference of $2,000, $3,000 refund from the IRS this year for waiters who worked, and there's no tax on tips.
I don't think they call them waiters anymore, right? You have to be very careful with the language we use today.
I call my staff the best.
Okay, the best waiters. Okay,
well,
go ahead.
For tip employees, let's put it that way. But the thing is that it's not there's no tax. There is going to be tax on a portion of your earnings, okay? But then it's also exempt.
Wait, that's the earnings, not the tips.
Yeah, but I want to clarify that because when you're telling people, I mean, when people are hearing on the news, oh, there's no tax on tips, I shouldn't be taxed, and they see the paychecks and then there's taxes being withheld, they're like, I thought there was no tax. You have to be very explicit about this because we don't want to say, oh, Trump said that there's no tax. There's no tax on tips. Okay, federal level. Statewide, you still have to pay. Ironically,
you mean Governor Hochul has not approved the tax-free program that the president implemented?
Yeah, it's not approved by the New York State.
You know, that's where you guys have to come in and start writing letters to the governor.
Right.
You need to let her know, especially now, it's an election year, right? It's an election year. Things get done on election years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so if you're able to get your fellow restaurant owners, your organization, to have the staff write letters, emails to Governor Hochul saying, Governor, why if the president did this at the federal level, why can't you do it at the state level? If you want affordability, if you want us to make more money, stop increasing the wages, decrease the taxes, which are probably more than the wages, right?
Yes.
So you guys really need to organize. And Eddie, I'm glad that you brought that up because there are taxes on tips at the state level. Wow, I didn't, that's why it's good to have an expert in the house.
Well, and that's just one of the points that we want to make sure that people, like ladies here, understand that, Trump has gone and done it. When someone's working, also they work overtime. So not only tips, but also overtime hours are not subject to tax as well.
Are you serious?
So that helps. That's a big difference for a family, like a working family, currently that makes $80,000. That's a $2,000 difference. That's a month's rent that they're getting back.
Let me ask you something, Eddie, or you, Peter. As an employer, you need Melissa or you need Delaney to stay an extra 3 hours, right? Let's say they work 40 hours a week. Now they had to work 50. Those extra 10 hours, you have to pay them time and a half?
Yes, that is correct.
You have to pay them time and a half. And even though they're making tips in those extra 5 hours. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's also, so that's where, to me, that's where, not just the tip, but the overtime. That's the difference changing.
So there's no taxes on overtime.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm going to, being a server is not bad these days, right? You guys are making some good money. No taxes on overtime, no taxes on tips.
To a certain point, which it phases out. They want to say, oh, it only helps, a certain group of people. But that's who you really want. Someone who works for you, that's making, $70,000, $60,000. You want to increase their spending power. You want to be able to keep more money in their hands.
The more they have, the more they spend.
And the less stressful they are.
Because they can spend it.
When you have to spend $2,000, rent is skyrocketing in New York City.
Yeah, but they need vacations.
That's
they need vacations.
Oh, they come to me all the time for that. Can I take vacation? Can I take vacation?
Yeah,
Florida, baby.
Oh yeah.
We want to make sure that what's going on gets through the state level. This way, we can guarantee more money into the hands of the working class.
You know what? I was speaking here earlier to a marketing social media expert, Alex Betancourt, and I am going to call Alex and see what kind of movement we can start with social media and all of the servers. How they can go on social media and say, Governor Hochul, help us out. The president did it. A Republican did it. You're a Democrat. You're supposed to help us even more. According to Democrats, they help the hardworking people more, which I don't see that. But needless to say, they can speak directly to the governor. I'm going to speak to Alex Betancourt about that and see how we can get a movement going that can go viral. We'll start with Peter with your 18 restaurants and your 600 employees, and we will we will get on, man. And it'll be one server after another, until Hochul says, I better do something. Right? Eddie, what else? What other bad news do you have for us here?
Well, you've been
giving us good news. I shouldn't say bad news.
Yeah, we've moved in the right directions for the employees. I think this is tremendous.
Okay, so no taxes on overtime.
On overtime.
No taxes on tips.
Right.
And when we come back after the next commercial break, I want you to speak about what's the limit.
Right, we'll talk about those limits.
Yeah,
we just want to. Once it gets to the limits, you want to be able to face these limits, because that means that if you've made $150,000, even though it's not a life changer, but that at least,
Listen, yesterday, my friend, I had to send out a whopping check. Okay, I'm talking about 7 digits to the government. Okay, my personal income taxes. All right,
that was the 15th yesterday, right?
Yeah, yesterday before midnight, we had to have that envelope stamped. I probably bought a day or two because I mailed in a check, and the check takes a few days to clear, giving me more time to put money in the account.
You could have won 2 weeks before. Now they take the check and they take a picture of the check in the post office, basically, and that thing is already in 2 days.
Don't tell me that. Oh, please don't. I needed an extra day or two. But taxes hurts, but when, you're in the United States of America. That is my biggest asset, is being in this country. And when I pay those huge amount of taxes, okay, I feel good because, I made the money.
Right.
So now I'm going to pay for the infrastructure that this country needs. What I hate to see is when my money is spent the wrong way.
Correct.
Like Zoran Mandami opening up bodega, spending $30 million to open up one supermarket that's going to create chaos, right? That hurts me. when you take my hard-earned money.
Yes.
I work hard. I don't think there's anyone that works harder than me. Okay, John Catsimatidis may disagree, but I'm telling him, John, you don't work harder than me, my friend. Well, let's go to our next commercial break. Let's get this thing rolling, pal. Well, here we are. For those of you that are joining us now, we are here with Peter Kambitzis. He's a restaurant owner, hospitality, owns 18 restaurants, employs over 600 people. With him today are two of his servers, Melissa and Delaney, and then we have our tax expert in the field of no taxes on tips, right? Eddie Estrella. So listen, Peter, I'm sorry. Wait. You hadn't finished before. Talk to me.
Well, we're talking about the significance of this tax break.
Yeah, but we also said that Governor Hochul has not approved a state.
Yeah, she's has sent signs that she wants to do it, but hasn't been done.
But why? Why do you think, Eddie? The advantage of her doing this means that it puts more money into the servers or the tipped employees' pockets, which means they're going to spend more money because everything you buy, everything you do, there are taxes. You buy an airline ticket, the airline hits you with taxes. You go to a restaurant, you get hit with taxes. You buy clothes, you get hit with taxes. Everything you do, you get hit with taxes. So although I'm in a 40%, 50% tax bracket, or the highest tax bracket there is, I spend another 20% on taxes. Mm-hmm. So, this is like, we criticize France. If you make over $1 million, you get 80%. You're doing the same thing here because you're taxed on everything that you buy.
There is a point made by a few people who I've spoken with in terms of this insanity of New York City in terms of taxes. They are promoting higher minimum wage, which is, we want people to make more, but let's put in perspective the fact that we could decrease or put a hold on New York City residential taxes, because that's I have a lot of restaurant owners. Their tax bill is $50,000 a quarter. They have to pay. Yep. Every 6 months they have to pay $50,000 in city taxes for property.
I say to myself, how does the city pretend to move forward in the right direction when you are taxing the small businesses to the gills, right? Number one. Number two, you are telling small businesses how to run their business. Now they don't want those cashless those cashless registers at the supermarket, right? They want you to have people manning these, right? They're dictating how many employees you can have and how you can have them. When have we gotten to this? This has never happened. You speak about minimum wage. Of course we want people to make more money. But how do you tell a small businessman that is surviving with 10 employees that they're going to have to pay $30 an hour by 2035 or 2030, whatever the year is, right? $30 an hour will put that man out of business, or it will make the products that he is selling not cost effective, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to raise your prices so much in order to meet that. So the person that's making now $30 an hour is going to spend another 30% on whatever they're buying. Right. So the bottom line is that their number is going to be the same. Right. Peter, what do you have to say about, listen, what's the minimum wage right now for a server at your restaurant?
I think it's hovers around under $12.
Yes, that's correct.
Under $12. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're making $12 straight up, and then they're making their tips. The real money is made on tips. Correct. It's not made on $12 an hour, that's right? Correct. But that keeps going up, which means that your base expense is going to go up. As Eddie said, your rent, your taxes. The landlord doesn't want to hear that you had 3 people in the restaurant on a Monday.
It's progressive. The issue is this: if the city increases, let's say, taxes by $50,000, the landlord is now going to charge you $50,000. He's going to put 3-4% into that amount because he's going to in terms of increases, because he's going to adjust his own rent based on the increase that the city does. If it's so that that $50,000 that went up. I had a client. They have a restaurant. They've been going from $16,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 in
taxes.
Property taxes over the last 4 years. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it adds up. It's a big difference.
Yeah, but you know what? The topic here today, and you know, Eddie, you drove the car off the road. Okay, we have to stay in our lane. Today is about taxes. No taxes on tips. I want everyone to know that if you're listening to Fernando Mateo, No Excuses on WABC Radio, millions of people are listening to you right now. And if you own a restaurant, you need to thank the president for taking the taxes off the tips. But that's just one part of it. You need for your governors in your states to do the same. Because why should we do it in one area and not the other? How much more would the server make if there were no sales taxes on tips on the state?
About $1,000 extra, which is a big difference.
$1,000 what, a month?
No. They would, in terms of how much they make.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the marginal tax rate. So on average, someone will pay 15%, 10% of whatever they make in taxes. So if they made $20,000 in tips, the state's not going to charge that 10% tax on it. So you're looking an extra $1,000. But that's a big difference.
It is a big difference, especially for people that aren't making, $100,000 or $200,000. Although there are some servers that are making over $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Peter, I know that you're that kind of guy that would make sure that all your servers are making $100,000 plus a year. You're going to have lines of candidates lining up in your restaurants.
Believe me, they do very well. We're very busy establishments.
That's good, man. I'm really happy about that. And Eddie, one of the things that's important here is for the business owners to know what they need to do not to get in trouble. Because when an employee feels that their employer is tampering with their tips, they may not be, but they may feel that way, they go to the labor department. And They open up a whole can of worms. I've known a lot of restaurant owners that are accused of tampering with tips when they're really not. But then I know a lot of them that do. Right? Yes. So how do we keep a guy like Peter out of trouble?
Okay, one thing is that tips employees, restaurant owners have to ensure that, it reaches, at least that they make the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. So if they work 8 hours, they should be compensated $17, $17.50 in New York City.
Correct.
So it has to reach that level. Mm-hmm. So in your case, there's a lot of tips involved, so there is not that issue. But in a smaller restaurant, even though it's $12 or $11.65, whatever the arrangement they did for them, it has to reach the 17 minimum amount. So they have to keep good records of it, a daily record of how much, and the employee has to cash tips. They have to tell you that they made that much money, because you have to, register this, because they could come back and say, well, I wasn't making enough. And if you don't have the records, the Department of Labor is going to come out after.
And even if you have the records, the Department of Labor, government has so many resources to take your business away from you. Mm-hmm. It's a shame that small business people put their money together, borrow money, sacrifice. A lot of the employees don't realize the sacrifice that goes into opening up a business, opening up a restaurant. They feel, oh, you're the boss, you're making all the money. A lot of the times you work for them. I always told all of my employees, I don't work for you. You don't work for me. I work for you. I have to make sure that I have the money to pay you at the end of each week. Mm-hmm. So who's working for who here, right?
Exactly.
So, I really appreciate, Peter, you taking the time coming here. I'd like to thank Melissa and Delaney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Eddie,
you.
I can't thank you enough.
I want to know where they're going to spend their money. Extra money.
Listen,
that's what I want to know.
Listen. I hope they go to one of your restaurants and spend it there. But sad enough, our hour has come to an end. Mm-hmm. It was very quick. I am going to miss the audience. I'm going to miss my guests. But we'll be back on another Sunday between 6 and 7. We're here live every Sunday between 6 and 7. And I want to thank my producer, Elias. Am I pronouncing it right?
Oh,
Elias, okay. Like I pronounced Kambitsis right.
That's my son's name too, Elias.
Okay. I'd like to thank my producers and everyone here at WABC for allowing me to deliver these messages every Sunday between 6 and 7. God bless, and let's go.
Let's go.